A boy reminisces about his policeman dad and how he had always looked up to him. He told his dad that he wants to be a policeman when he gets older and asks what he's supposed to do to achieve that. His father tells him that he needs to become a person who wouldn't hesitate to help out people in trouble. The boy's name is Minamijuji Sei, an all-around very average Japanese high school student. He recounts how he one day heard a voice inside his head asking for help. Confused, he asks where that voice is coming from, and if they need him to call an ambulance. A hole suddenly opens up beneath him, sucking Sei inside, and sending him to a world called Midgard. He recounts how the people who summoned him told him his goal is to defeat the demons and the supreme ruler. Sei has doubts about whether he can kill someone. However, if he abandons these people, then he'll never become the person he always wanted to be. He accepts the commission, since he knows that his dad wouldn't abandon anyone, even if it's in another world. Despite his bold claims, however, Sei is saddened by the fact that he doesn't have the strength to back it up, as he gets absolutely demolished in a sword fight, forcing him to surrender. His opponent is someone named Friedrich, a master of the sword who is regarded as the sword saint. Sei is grateful to be trained by the strongest swordsman in the world. However, there's a problem. Friedrich's face is revealed to be a tiger beast man, as he begins to roar at Sei, as he is incapable of speaking the human language. Sei notes that the beastmen are able to communicate in human language. However, he has never heard Friedrich say a single word at all. A voice tells Sei that the Captain Friedrich was offended by the fact that Sei was daydreaming during his training, and Sei addresses the woman as the vice captain, a female knight who's translating for the sword saint. Sei thinks about the cliché, beautiful-looking female knights, however is appalled at the fact that the vice captain turned out to be a gorilla. Friedrich starts to growl, and Sei asks the vice captain what he's saying. She translates, saying that the captain wants to go eat chicken. Sei asks what he's supposed to do, and the vice captain tells him that the training is over, as the captain wants to head outside, to which Sei remarks that the captain is a bit too fickle. Now I know you weebs aren't exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, so here's the definition for fickle up on screen. Someone calls out to Sei, and they're revealed to be the elf who had summoned him. We finally learn his name to be Cruz, who informs Sei that they finally have all of their party members assembled for their journey, and he tells Sei to take Friedrich and come with him to the throne room. The king greets Sei inside the throne room, and he informs Sei that the time for his journey has come. He tells Sei that he has prepared the very best equipment and people to take for his journey. He introduces them to be the Sword Saint Friedrich at level 120, the King's Advisor Cruz Northern at level 88, and a Mage Alfie at level 72, and is the top graduate of Suval's Magic Academy. She turned out to also be Gant's daughter, and she learned some swordsmanship from him. In case you guys forgot, Gantz was that bald mercenary from Suval in part 1 of this series. He's definitely a very important character, so you guys should really be jotting this down. Next, the king presents a bunch of steel golems gifted to them from Migres, and 10 elite rangers over level 50 from the spy division to help the hero from the shadows. And finally, he presents the supreme ruler's treasures that was recovered from the black-winged royal tomb by the 4 members of the Hawkeyes. Sei is relieved at that, since he's only level 15. The king orders Sei and his party to go defeat the Demon King and the newly revived supreme ruler to save the entire world. The party heads out into the city, where everyone is hosting a celebration for their departure. The party reaches the city gates, and they step outside. Sei suddenly notices black feathers from the sky, and the entire party begins to panic. Cruz screams in terror, as Lufasu Mafahl stood right outside of the city. So imagine fighting the final boss at the very first stage. However, Cruz then notices someone else in the sky, and he trembles in fear. The Demon King himself also shows up in front of the city. Sei panics as both Lufasu and the Demon King has somehow appeared at the exact same time, and he thinks that he's absolutely fucked. Lufasu glances over at the party, and she assumes that Sei is most likely the hero, and the man standing right in front of her must be the official last boss of the game, the Demon King. She then provides some much-needed context, as we flash back to a few hours ago when Lufasu first learned of the hero summoning. Lufasu thought back to when it was just a game, and how Alioth was the only person to ever get the hero class. After gaining the hero class, Alioth became incredibly overpowered and gained a bunch of deadly skills. His favorite skill was Climax, which allowed him to revive while increasing his attack and critical rate by 100%. Lufasu figures that since the demons know about the summoning, they'll definitely try to eliminate the hero before he gets a chance to grow stronger. Dina states that it's obvious that the demons would try to kill the hero before he grows stronger. However, the kingdom has a barrier created by the Sword King Alioth, and someone at the level of the 7 luminaries would definitely not be able to break it. The barrier was created by using the hero skill, Succession, which creates a massive barrier that boosts the player's abilities inside while weakening enemies. But in exchange, the hero who uses the skill will be killed, which basically equals a permanent death in this world compared to the game where you can just respawn. Dina explains how the Sword King Alioth lost both of his eyes to the Demon Lord, and he used his skill to create the barrier around the entire kingdom before he passed away. Lufasu figures that if the barrier is there, then the kingdom will most likely be safe, to which Ares agrees to as even he and Ego Karos struggle with the barrier. Dina states that as long as the Demon Lord and his son don't appear, then the kingdom will be safe. However, once the hero steps outside of the barrier, the 7 luminaries will most likely be camping at his location and take him out. Lufasu thinks that it would be a good opportunity to take out one of the 7 luminaries, and she decides to head over to the kingdom on her own and help out the hero. Lufasu observes the barrier and realizes why the 7 luminaries aren't able to get close. She then looks to the side and asks someone if they agree, as the Demon Lord suddenly pops out through a portal. We flash forward back to in front of the city, where the Demon Lord addresses Lufasu as Alcor, as introduces himself as Olm. Lufasu is confused by how she was addressed, and Olm tells her that it's her nickname, meaning a being that brings death when encountered, and it's how the demons address her. Lufasu proceeds to introduce herself, while affecting the hero's party with her intimidation status. She is surprised that the Demon Lord had personally come since she assumed he'd be afraid of the hero. However, Olm tells her that he only fears 2 people in this world, the goddess and Lufasu herself, which is why he'd always avoid a direct confrontation with her. Lufasu is surprised, since Olm had appeared before her just now, and Olm tells her that he realized something after Lufasu was sealed. Olm tells her that she's the only one who can escape the goddess scenario, confusing Lufasu. The Demon Lord tells her that if she wants to know, then she'll have to force him in a battle. Lufasu accepts his challenge, and the 2 of them charge at each other. A giant explosion is created, and Alfie starts to break down in fear, thinking that it's impossible for them to ever beat those 2 monsters. Say, however, observes the battle, as Lufasu and Olm unleashes a volley of attacks and skills that I'm just not going to list out. Olm notes that it's been a while since he's fought such a worthy opponent ever since his battle against the 7 heroes 200 years ago. Lufasu begins to silently panic because she had not anticipated how strong the Demon Lord would be, and she figures that if they kept fighting, then she would eventually lose. Olm suddenly calls out Lufasu for underestimating him, because he knows that her true power is not at that level. Lufasu is confused since her power should be around that of the 7 heroes. However, Olm explains how she should be much stronger than this. Lufasu tells Olm that she has no idea what he's talking about, shocking Olm. He suddenly comes to a realization and curses the goddess for making the first move. Lufasu asks him to clarify, and Olm tells her that it's too early for the 2 of them to fight, and that they can't surpass the goddess scenario like this. Lufasu still has no clue what that is, and Olm explains that everything that occurs in this world is meant to follow the goddess scenario. The demons, for example, were created by the goddess only to make the scenario more interesting. Lufasu is confused as to why the Demon Lord is giving her all this information, and he suddenly asks her if she knows why demons attack and kill humans. Lufasu answers that they want to expand their territories, and Olm tells her that it's only the textbook answer, and that the real reason is because they literally cannot live without killing humans. If they don't kill any humans, then they will all disappear. Once demons disappear, their fragments are turned into mana and becoming the source of magic. Everything about the demons were all created by the goddess, and Olm was the one entrusted to manage them. Lufasu asks Olm if that means that he's different than the rest of the demons, but Cruz suddenly interjects. He asks if their goddess Alovenus, who loves all beings, is really the one who wants to plunge the world into despair. Olm confirms this, saying that the goddess never wanted to save the world, and that's why the war from 200 years ago even happened. He said although Lufasu was frightening back then, there wasn't a reason for her to be sealed before the demons were defeated, and that it'd be better to seal her after she defeated the demon lord. However, instead, the 7 heroes did not wait for the right time before sealing Lufasu, and the demon lord asks everyone if they think that's strange. Lufasu thinks about it, and realizes that because of that, the 7 heroes lost to the demon lord, and the demons ended up taking over. The ones who defeated Lufasu also deeply regretted their actions afterwards. Olm tells Lufasu that she was most likely the one who realized the truth first, and that's why she should be the one to stop the goddess scenario. Lufasu notices a portal opening up behind the demon lord, and he's about to say something, when he suddenly gets interrupted by an X-Gate attack. Dina suddenly appears and attacks Olm with her move Dawnstar. Libra suddenly appears and snatches Lufasu away. Libra tells her that fighting the Demon King now would not be a good idea, but Lufasu tells her to wait, saying that the heroes are still down there. Olm glances over at Dina and tells her that he had already put up a barrier so that no one can eavesdrop on them, to which Dina smirks at. Olm addresses Dina as Venus and asks what she's doing. Dina tells Olm that she was just putting on an act to gain the trust of Lufasu's party, though Olm is not convinced as Dina had went all out on that attack earlier. Dina tells Olm that she knew he could take it, to which Olm scoffs at. He then asks Dina if she knew about the fact that Lufasu Mafahl has been weakened. Dina admits to knowing, and Olm asks Dina if she was the one behind it. Dina denies the accusation and says that someone as weak as her would not be capable of such a feat, and that the only one who is the goddess herself. Meanwhile, Lufasu is bummed out that she was forced to retreat since the heroes were still there, but Libra tells her that the Demon King's objective was her, so the heroes should be fine. Lufasu asks Libra if she heard her conversation with Olm, and Libra confirms this, since Dina had opened a small gate near Lufasu. Lufasu thinks back to how she was in the middle of something important before being interrupted, when Dina suddenly announces her return. She tells Lufasu that the Demon King had immediately left the scene once Lufasu left, and he didn't touch the heroes at all. Lufasu thought back to what the Demon Lord said, and she hypothesized that the real Lufasu had discovered something 200 years ago about the goddess scenario. She gets upset at the fact that she didn't get to hear what the Demon Lord had to say, when she suddenly gets interrupted, as their group had just arrived at Vanaheimer. Lufasu recounts how Vanaheimer was formerly a Skywing country, and also Lufasu's hometown, and now it currently holds Parthenos of the Maiden, from the 12 heavenly stars. Parthenos had driven all the Skywings away and put up a barrier around the entire country, and the group is now here to pick her up. However, Lufasu thought back to what Dina said about Parthenos being healthy, and she's having doubts that Parthenos would be fine after 200 years, since she's just a normal human. Lufasu explained how Parthenos in the game was able to form parties with other human NPCs and constantly spam heal spells and buffs. Lufasu figures that if Parthenos is still alive, then she must be incredibly old, and would most likely not even be able to follow Lufasu on her journey. The group manages to pass through the barrier, meaning that Parthenos viewed them all as allies. The group eventually stumbles upon a small cottage, and Lufasu knocks on the door. A girl slightly opens the door, and Lufasu realizes that it's not Parthenos. The girl notices Lufasu's black wings, and she opens the door, asking if she was the Lufasu her grandma always talked about. The girl is revealed to be a Skywing, and she introduces herself as Virgo. Virgo offers to take the group to her grandmother, and Lufasu proceeds to use Examination Eye on Virgo. She notices that Virgo is a full Skywing with a pretty high level, and she assumes that Virgo is probably Parthenos' adopted granddaughter. Virgo tells everyone that they've arrived, and she introduces her grandmother, who is now in a gravestone. Virgo revealed that Parthenos had choked on a fruit last year and ended up dying as a result. Lufasu asks Dina about this, and Dina assumed that Parthenos was still alive since the barrier was still intact. Virgo explains that it's because Parthenos' spirit is still roaming the world because of unfinished business. Lufasu asks Virgo if she knows where Parthenos' spirit is, but Virgo says she doesn't. Ares is confused, since Virgo would have no way of knowing that Parthenos became a ghost if she's never seen her, But Virgo explains that it's because Parthenos would occasionally show up to repair the barrier. Virgo tells the group that her grandma had just finished repairing the barrier not long ago, so it'll be some time before she shows up again. Keros decides to just break the barrier to get Parthenos out, and he destroys it using his skill Invisible Break. Lufasu scolds him for this, and he sulks. Even after the barrier was destroyed, however, Parthenos still didn't show up, and Virgo tells the group that she's probably in the town above. Ares asks if it was Lufasu's hometown, and that they can find her mom's grave up there. Libra explains how every year, Lufasu would come visit her mother's grave, and she suggests they go visit it. Lufasu agrees to it, but is very confused as it was something from the real Lufasu's past that she has no clue about. Lufasu ended up creating a Tanaka jet to take the entire group up the Vanahemer. Lufasu observes the town, and a ton of childhood memories started to appear inside her head. Ares asks her if she's all right, and Lufasu brushes it aside and tells everyone to look for Parthenos at Lufasu's house. Libra observes that the town seems pretty nice, and Lufasu recounts how it only had bitter memories for her of the neighborhood kids throwing rocks at her. Libra immediately retracts her statement, and Ares and Keros decides to burn the whole place down. They all transform and started to destroy everything. Lufasu orders them all to stop and said that she doesn't want her house and her mother's grave to get destroyed. The group arrives at Lufasu's house, which was a giant mansion. However, Lufasu tells everyone that she only entered the house a few times, and that her true house was the little shed next door. Lufasu explains how her father loathed her since she had black wings and considered killing her, but her mother managed to persuade him to isolate her in a worn-out shed. Libra asks Lufasu for permission to kill her father, but Lufasu tells her that he has died long ago. Lufasu enters the shed, and she suddenly gets a flashback of her mother. Lufasu thinks that her best objective should be to find something that the real Lufasu found out about the goddess scenario 200 years ago. Dina asks Lufasu what that is, and Lufasu answered that the demon lord said that everything in the world would move according to it. She asks the group if any of them have heard of it, but they all answered no. A voice suddenly offers to answer the question, as a young girl suddenly appears and greets Lufasu. Lufasu doesn't recognize the girl, as the girl starts to joke about the Skywing's long lifespan compared to her who's now become a ghost. She asked Lufasu if she was unable to recognize her, even though she worked so hard to recreate her appearance from her prime. Virgo realizes she recognizes the girl, as she turned out to be none other than Parthenos.